Hi und herzlich willkommen zu dieser neuen Natural State Podcast Folge. Hier treffe ich die wunderbaren Menschen, die liebe Katja und ihren Partner Mathew. Wir werden über die sogenannte Alignment Methode sprechen und über viele Erfahrungen, die damit einhergegangen sind im Laufe ihres Lebens, über wirklich tiefgehende Erlebnisse und wie sich das bis jetzt auf ihr eigenes Leben und auf ihr kommendes Business ausgewirkt hat und auswirken wird. Ich wünsche euch einen guten Prozess.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you for your courage, for your time to be here, Katja and also Mathew, to take your time to share what you're actually into and what you are doing, and sharing about your work, sharing about your vision, sharing about what is actually into your life. So, and I really would like to hear a bit more about that, because the word alignment in case of language could be a lot, and I really would like to hear something about that from you. So who are you actually, and what is it, what you're doing with your passion?
Yeah, it is definitely a passion and came from that space. But yeah, who am I? I'm Katja, and I'm half German, half American, and just recently moved to Hawaii, like 1 year ago. But I was working on the alignment method for the past few years. But before I get into that, I might say where do I actually come from? Like, what's my background? And so first, after I've gone to school, I became a dental technician, and I've noticed how intense a 9 to 5 job, and it wasn't actually a 9 to 5 job, it was more a 60, 70 hour week. So I was just being in pain the whole time and being stressed out. And I think in that moment, the desire was arising of how can we actually work and be in alignment? How can we do that? And I remember exactly the moment where I was setting this intention of I really wanna help people how to do that, because how it is, it's not working and it's fucking painful. And it's just I could barely move sometimes. Like whenever I got from work, I was just pain. My boyfriend at that time, he had to massage me for hours so I could feel better. So so yeah, I think in that moment it was just the intention came into life. But yeah, and then after a while I just thought, okay, I'm gonna stop this. This is not what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna torture my body. And then I started studying math and art in university in Berlin. And but it was kind of similar. It was also I was pulling myself in this battle. I was just studying. If I don't know if you you ever if you know how it is to study math. The art part was it's very creative and you have like a lot of freedom. But the math art is just you have to work a lot, and the failures are like 80%. So it's just a lot of pressure all the time. So in a way, I just went on with my path of kind of like suffering, just doing too much. And after a while, I stopped that as well. I was like, okay, from now on, I'm just gonna follow my heart, and whatever that is. And then my journey started of tons of trainings. I did healing practitioner and hypnotherapy training, 8 different yoga teacher trainings, psychodrama, which is a little bit like constellation work, corporate health management, and I usually forget some of them because there's just so many things that I did. and out of all these parts, I the desire to do something for the world was still there. And at that time, I was spending a lot of time with climate activists, and um, especially from Extinction Rebellion. And I don't know if you've heard about it. Um, but I was like, what can I do? The approach that, because I mean, the people that I knew, they were like gluing themselves to Siemens or something like that. And I was like, that's not me. I don't feel like doing that. Although I like they do it, but it's just not me. So since I have all this coaching experiences, and one of my passions is emotional work, and a big part is possibility management, where you get in contact with fear, anger, sadness, and joy, and that I just got into that world, and everything got like my whole life just turned around when I started to get into a love relationship with hate and anger and sadness. And it sounds weird if you say like, oh, I like my life more since I started hating people or like something like that, but it is really true for me. So, and then I started to think about, well, what can I do? And what's what's the biggest impact right now on the world? And it's basically the corporate world. Most people work in the corporate world, and most people are suffering there. Like, I don't know anybody who's not really suffering to a certain level. Like, um, and so I was like, oh, yeah, I think also remembering this first intention that I've set, like, wow, I think this is the path that I want to go. And then I started to really build this up, build a concept, how to work with organizations, and um, yeah. So, and right now, and then I moved to Hawaii, and now I'm in a different culture, and I realized the corporate world is very different, or not just the corporate world, the people are very different, because my approach for the alignment method was doing something against climate change. And talking with you about this, actually, Matthew, was like, well, we're in the United States here. Climate change is something political or even religious or non-religious. So either you believe in evolution or in religion. So I was like, oh, well, you because my approach was like informing also the corporate world about climate change. And he's like, no, you can't do this here. This is not possible. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot how in which country I am. And just stuff like that is becoming more and more into my awareness, day by day, week after week. So yeah, but right now we're here in the beginning stages to implement it into the United States, and to create workshops here in Hawaii for leaders and managers. And yeah, that's kind of like the start of it, and bring really emotional work and doing something for the world into existence, and really do something.
Yeah, that sounds very, very moved, and yeah, in a way of being a human to to have lots of contact with failures and emotions. Like you said, what is in the whole way, what is possible now, what is possible then. And I think it's very, very interesting, and also very important when you said something about the possibility management. And people mostly think that this is something not something about emotions and whatever. But I guess that's a really important point. So really interesting. I had a possibility management session for
you know of it? That's cool.
for 5 days with someone from Germany, and he is actually
Nice.
moving with his wife in 1 month through Canada for 6
Sweet,
months
yeah.
to
Nice.
practice permaculture and possibility management.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit surprised actually. So I'm really touched.
Surprised? Why?
Yeah, because I didn't really knew a lot about you and your work. I knew that there was something about alignment, and you told something about that a bit. And I'm I'm into an alignment, I guess, more and more with people who try to be more with their own passion, and that's very interesting. That's very surprising in a positive way, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibility management makes me really passionate.
I guess.
But if you see, like, it brought me more in contact with anger, but also joy, and which is kind of like a mixture. That's what passion is, right? It's a mixture of conscious anger and joy, and which drives you forward. And anger, enough for those who don't know what possibility management is, anger has a very beneficial side, because when anger is actually not what most people think of anger, like this outburst of screaming and I want to do something mean to you or whatever. That's one part of anger, but that's actually just when the cup of anger is already full and it's just overflowing. And but that's like there's low percentages of anger which makes you driven, want to do something, want to act, want to bring something into the world that is there's a saying like you're angry about what you care about. So we can use that anger as a force to create, basically, not from a point of where we really like wanting to destroy something, but there's this focused anger energy that is really very beneficial and useful, I found. And yeah, I'm passionate about it, as you can see.
I'm really angry now. So, I get that. I guess that could be also something that when you say, okay, actually, I'm really, I might say maybe I'm pissed. So I could say that. So, and when I say that, actually, I'm really pissed about the situation now. I'm pissed about that conversation, about that job interview, and I feel that energy is rising up to that it kind of gives me the possibility to do something with that energy. And when I don't know how to choose that all the time, it just creates another layer of maybe a new habit, just rejecting everything is against me and so on. So I really get that.
That seems like a story that that's what happens a lot. Like there's this distinction between emotion and feeling, and emotion is something old from the past and that you haven't been able to feel through. That was kind of traumatic. And the sign of that is if you're in that longer than 3 minutes, then it's usually an emotion. And if it's a feeling, it's something you can use as something beneficial, and it's not, you don't suffer from it. And usually when we have stories that are circling, like, oh, this, whatever the story is, then it's an emotion from the past. And it's a doorway to actually feel it and look into it and then step out of it.
Is there something specific you would like to tell, or is there, because I'm really interested about Mathew. You said something about or she said something about you, that you might be a bit more into that. If I get that right, did I get that right, or was it
A bit more into what?
into possibility management, or did I get that
Oh
wrong?
no.
No.
No,
No.
I'm bringing it a little bit into his
She-
life.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's
possible.
funny. Yeah, like listening, like I've never heard her actually share that story, like her story, in that way before, in that particular order. And listening now, it's like it kind of strikes me how similar our stories are, even though the details are completely different. It's almost the exact same arc, just different details. And so, yeah, like now coming together, like there are some things that she talks about from possibility management that at first I'm like, no, not feeling that. But then the more we talk about it, the more it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. That's actually something very similar to what I learned through Sufism or shamanism or Lomi Lomi or whatever, And it's like, so like we're starting to integrate our two structures together and create something new. And that's been really beautiful.
Yeah. And so what is your actually your intention then together? That would be, I guess that's really interesting, because I guess to find out how to get more in contact with your alignment, or with your emotions, also a bit more far from possibility management. I guess it's everything about getting more in contact with your own needs and things you want to change, is when you get in contact with other people. And actually it's, yeah, you are in contact, and what is about that, your vision. So I guess that's something that really, yeah, touched me, I guess. So it's getting I'm getting very close to that point of, okay, we decided to do something together, and this will be very intense. Yeah, because there's always someone who is a potential for my own triggers and for my emotions.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
we have a very beautiful way of working with our triggers. It's
Yeah.
maybe you want to talk about it or tell it.
of course, now you're here, you can't run away.
Yeah.
You can.
Well, first, like, so there's something I'd like to tease out first, because we've been talking about alignment, like, and that's something that you said in particular, like that word just really strikes you. It really, like, you really appreciate that idea. And there's a conversation that comes when asking, are you in alignment? And that's, well, what are we in alignment with? Like, what are we speaking about when we say we're in alignment? And so, are you in alignment with your community? Are you in alignment with your family? Are you in alignment with yourself? And if we're talking about being in alignment with yourself, well, what exactly is that? What is the self that we're talking about that we want to be in alignment with? And so a lot of the work is actually learning how to distinguish self. Like, what am I? Who am I? How did I get to be where I am today? And there's a question that I've been starting to use a lot that I really appreciate, and it kind of throws people for a loop at first. But I'll ask it. I'll ask you specifically, and I'm just curious to see where it lands. Where was Fabian when you were born? And if you really think about that, like, where was Fabian? Did Fabian even exist? And if he did, what made him up? And if he didn't, how did he come to exist? What exactly is Fabian made out of? And this kind of throws people for a loop at first, because it's a very direct way of pointing out that identity and self are two totally different things. So identity is just what we've learned to become. It's basically a series of stories that we've accepted as true about the world that we use to navigate this world. And then self is that more ephemeral thing that's very hard to explain. It's very hard to put into words. And I feel like the more words we use to try and describe it, the further away from the truth we get. But in a nutshell, self is that which is aware of the stories. It's the consciousness, it's the awareness, it's just love in a lot of ways. I feel like love is one of the better words to describe it. And so when I invite people to come into alignment, I'm inviting them to come into alignment with the self, not the identity. And that is a whole journey in and of itself. And that also comes back to how her and I work with each other. Is we're constantly looking to distinguish the stories versus what we actually feel, what we actually observe, what's in alignment with our higher self, so to speak. And one way to tell that a story is in control is if there is an emotion, like if there's a reaction to something that's said or done or heard or perceived. And so and particularly if there's an emotion that most people think of as negative, so sadness, anger, grief, fear, rage, those are almost always created by stories, maybe even always created by stories. And so anytime one of those emotions is present, that's an opportunity to go, okay, what's the story? How did this get created? What's the story that created this? And what do you believe? And why is it bringing up this emotion now?
Yeah, so whenever something comes up between us, which of course happens, we'll just with like honest curiosity, really ask ask the other person, like, what's the story? And when you ask me this, I feel a lot of compassion from you. I don't like, even if the story is something that is maybe something mean, something that could actually hurt your identity, Matthew, then you still ask with curiosity and a lot of compassion and love. And so that gives me a space of being really honest and completely me. And it makes it very easy. I mean, it's in general something that I stand for, that I want to bring into the world, but you make it very nice and pleasant and easy for me. So, and that's also something that is a part of the alignment method that we actually want to bring into the corporate world.
Yes.
Is stepping out of the stories and being able to really truly connect with each other. And because I think that's what people crave most for a real connection, and shedding off those masks that sometimes we don't even know that we wear them. So I had a few masks that I still have.
Same.
So,
yeah.
and it's a process to really let them go. Even if I'm aware of one, it's not necessarily like, oh yeah, I can just let go of that. I just recently discovered one that I'm like, oh, that's scary to let go of that one. I don't know. That's who am I without that? Like, so yeah, it's a journey, but it's worth it, definitely.
A very good view of that, I could say, organic process to grow as a person. When you say there are lots of things, there are lots of situations where I get in touch with all the stuff, with all the unknown, with all the things I learned, with all the habits that might been stored into my body, into my mind, into my embodiment system, yeah, which is a part of who I am now, for now, and who will I be in the next days? I don't know. Maybe something has changed. So and
Mm-hmm.
I I I really can feel that, because when people say, I really want to be close to someone else, I don't want it to be in the feelings of being alone, I wanted to be connect to someone else, then we might realize that it's also not just, but it's also very important to get in contact with our own needs, with our own habits, with our own boundaries.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so I was really thinking about that situation which I told you about, that that I had this this job interview, and after I just wrote an email, and the person in front of me, the owner of the company, just said, okay, that's too much, wish you a nice day. So, and then it was just, my reaction was, okay, but did he really understood what I was trying to do? So did he really was in contact with my wish, with my needs, even if he's someone who is, yeah, saving money, yeah, because I would be someone who is working with him, not just for him, for his company. This would be, in my understanding, this would be another way of, okay, maybe he just tried to get more out of his life, out of his time as it was before, but it's not the end of our conversation, and I really had the wish, or I really have the wish that we will meet again, and then I can just offer, okay, it was a try, so, and now we can see what's possible in that, yeah, I could say in that standard work, job, community, whatever trauma. So they all traumatize, and so, okay, that's possible. And if you're not with it, then okay, you're off. There's no space for really another point of view, another try, or another alignment. Maybe we can meet from another point of view, even if in the first conversation we did not met. This makes me really angry, actually. So, and that's very interesting. Yeah. And that's yeah.
So, and this actually feels like a beautiful opportunity, because he's not here. The person you were writing with isn't here. So all we can do with him is speculate. Like, we don't actually know, right? Like, we can guess, we can play with it, but there's an emotion present in you. And so that's an opportunity for you to go, okay, what's the story? What am I actually angry about in this situation? And start exploring that anger and see where it leads.
Yeah, really. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And if I would go through that, I would say, just, okay, at some point I does not feel seen, or I feel a bit unworthy. Yeah. So, and this might be the story behind my needs, my habits. So because he's saying I'm not in alignment, or I'm not worthy, or whatever. It doesn't really matter what's he's saying. It's just, okay, I'm not interested anymore. And that starts to rise up my own story about my old times, about my own habits. Yeah, and so that's the feeling. So it's not just anger, it's also behind the anger a need, a worriness. Maybe I'm a bit tired of that conversation, and I would like to stop with that. I just wanted to do something with passion more. So yeah. And then looking for the next steps. What could that be?
Yeah. And like that also feels like you're kind of stepping into the unknown too, because maybe you were attached to this and now you don't know where you're going next. And that's also a little bit scary.
That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into, that's but that's it. Yes, of course. Yeah.
It's so funny when you start talking about it, I'm like instantly wanted like like, oh, what other feeling is there? Is there like I'm like instantly going into my coaching mode, and I was like almost like holding myself back to not guide you into an EHP emotional healing process right now.
Yeah. It's
But,
okay.
yeah.
You don't have to. If I would like to, but yeah, I very appreciate that, because that's also very natural. If we care for other people, in our culture, there was this commitment. Even if you don't know people, you're supposed to help them, and this is very familiar with an old cultural system, with with our thinking of family, or with the thinking of with the view of community. Also, or in Hawaii or in Africa. In Africa, there's this word of Ubuntu, and it says, even if you don't know people, you're supposed to help them. This is the word.
But there's a fine line, and probably if you're into possibility management, you have heard about the drama triangle, which is basically every interaction or every time when there's like a conflict, or not necessarily a conflict, there are three roles. One is the perpetrator, the bad guy. One is the victim that has a problem and can't help themselves. And then there's a rescuer, and who's like, oh, dear victim, you're not okay, I want to help you. So there's a fine line. Like if there's not an invitation, I tend to go into the rescuer role, which is not very beneficial. I have learned that lesson. But so I'm like holding myself back a lot of times, and at the same time, because a lot of times it really creates more of a victim, because the message behind it is you're not okay, and but I'll help you, you know. And I'm not saying that you were just being that. Honestly, I had the opposite feeling. You were just sharing and just being honest, and I didn't feel you as a victim. But it's a fine line. If there's no invitation to really be there, then like, and sometimes you can feel the invitation energetically. It's not necessarily, oh, I want this right now. But that's why I think it's very important to get more in tune, so you can actually feel those lines and those invitations, and not just because the thing that comes out of this drama triangle, it doesn't really get better.
Yeah.
And there's some people who can play a very, very good victim, and I have lived with people like that, and the victim stories, they just don't stop. You know, it's just they don't really want help, because what they want is actually the attention and the connection that they get from it, and the compassion. And so if they would stop being a victim, then they wouldn't get that anymore, because they feel they're not worthy of that at all, and that's why they're creating this victim. role. And the thing is, the victim is the most potent role in the thing, because without a victim, there's no perpetrator and there's no rescuer. So yeah, there's a way of really taking responsibility for that. But it's so, in our society, it's so common. We even learn that in movies. There's always a victim, mostly a pretty girl that needs to be rescued. And then there's a bad guy who wants to destroy the world. And then there's the hero. So subconsciously we pick that up, and it's just we internalize that. Oh, that's how I want to be. That's how it should be. And victims are celebrated too. Like I've realized that there's this show, AGT, America's Got Talent, and there are these people that go on the stage and they sing or dance or whatever they do. And what I've noticed is, as soon as they have a victim story, if they got bullied or have a disease or whatever, they love that. they just instant. They don't really, like, a lot of times they are really good, but sometimes it's not about that. As soon as there's just compassion for the victim, it does something with it, and it's a nice feeling to have this compassion for someone, to feeling, oh, I really want to help you. And so yeah, but that's an interesting journey, and it's such an often played game. It's just so common in workspaces, in relationships, in friendships, like everywhere. And it's an unconscious game, and a game that I know very well, that I have played as well, and more and more let go of. I hope you can tell me how much I can let go of it.
I'm very attached. So I guess into
attached to what?
Yeah, to yeah, to the roles which I'm sometimes into as a human being. So in this archetypes from a story, and now I'm into this boat, and I try to figure out where do I want it to go with this boat, and I might want to take something out and put it away, and then take something new, something else into the boat. And
what do you want to put out at the moment, out of your boat, if I may ask?
If it would be a boat, then I would say maybe the role or the story of I'm not worthy, or I'm this kind of role from being a victim. So a bit less of that, and a bit more self-confidence. So because I'm the one, not only the one who moves the world, but I'm the one who can decide which small step I have to go for my needs or my vision or whatever. So that's possible, and this is something I really would like to do more as a person when I hear that. So, and that's very natural, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing is, the being unworthy, like I've thought a lot about that and felt into it. It's just not, because in possibility management you can do an EHP, right? There's an emotion, and then you do one EHP or several layers for this emotion, and then it's just gone. But the thing about this feeling unworthy is that's an assumption that we take on a lot of times after every trauma. So it's not just one, because what is it, being unworthy? It's like, oh, I don't fit into this world, or I'm not good enough, and how I am is not enough. And that's after every trauma, most of the time that comes up. If we're like not allowed to feel anger in a certain moment, then we're like, okay, I'm not going to feel anger, I'm going to suppress this, I'm going to put this into my subconscious, and it's bubbling there. So this part is not worthy. So the more we have of this, the more we feel unworthy. And so it's not just like a process that's so easily done. It's a process about over years, and
Yeah.
maybe even a lifetime for some. It really depends on the person, I guess, but and the dedication. It needs a lot of dedication as well.
Yeah, and this actually comes into another point of how her and I work together, and how we want to work with people in corporations and teams, which is holding a space of absolutely no judgment. Like there's like in a lot of the traditional faiths and counseling modalities, there's this idea that there are good emotions and bad emotions, that there's good things to do and bad things to do. And that doesn't feel very helpful in the long run. Like it has helped a lot of people, and it works to a certain point. But once you get to a certain point in your journey, it feels like that idea of good, bad, right, and wrong is no longer helpful. And it might actually start holding you back.
Do you have an example to make it more vivid
Yeah.
or more?
So like what we were exactly what we were just talking about, playing the victim role. You know, like there is nothing wrong with playing the victim role. It's part of being here. It's part of learning as a human, and learning what being a human is, and learning how to grow beyond being human in a lot of ways is kind of the way I look at it. And there's a fundamental shift in perspective that I feel like puts everything on its, like it shifts everything for me, which is life isn't happening to me, life is happening for me. And when I look at it in that way, then all of my experiences become opportunities to learn. And if we're judging something, like if we're judging, oh, I like, that's not something I can talk about because whatever, like, you know, I can't talk about being a victim, or I can't talk about this, or I can't talk about that because whatever reason, then we automatically are losing the opportunity to learn from that experience. And so, how do I want to say that? It's not like we're condemning the drama triangle. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying that at a certain point, it may not be helpful to be on it anymore, and that there is a way to step out of it.
Well, or like looking at it in a non-judgmental way. Like you can be in a victim role, either witnessing someone else or yourself, and like, oh, that's interesting. How fun.
Like,
Let's
oh,
work
why?
with it.
Yeah, what made me think that, or what put me in that state of mind? Like, where did that come from? Like,
Yeah.
how did I end up here?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it with curiosity instead of blame.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which is the place of non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so touched. That's really interesting. I haven't been so touched in that times with the conversation so far from else. So you're on Hawaii and I'm in Germany. So that's very I'm very tuned to what you're saying, and what, how do you say that? Because you also, yeah, that's what I feel. Actually, I don't really feel actually in that situation, that we just have an interview. We more, I guess I would say, we more have a conversation about what is life, and what is this being in that's a really nice word, alignment. I really love that word. What is that? What is that idea of being with that, or trying to be more with you, trying to be more with myself? And because it's just so, yeah, it's just everywhere. Every time when I do a decision, every time when I say, okay, I go with that, I don't want to go with that, I am with something. I am with, who is this? Like you said, who's this? This me before me? Oh, yeah. Who is this? And
who's making that decision?
Without thinking too much. Even when there's this strength behind the fear, what is possible when I say, okay, there is fear, fine, you had the opportunity in the past to protect me from something, from maybe my worst case, but what is the best case? What could be the best case if I decide to go that way for a while, or just for now? If I say, okay, I might not, maybe, yeah, because it was that story which I have been told. Then what could happen when I decide, okay, I will work for you for a while, and then we will see, maybe we will change something. But first, I would like to do something with a bit passion, maybe just a bit passion of what I would like to do, and then maybe a bit more, or there might be another opportunity somewhere else. This is something I don't know yet, and that's something, I guess, this is something what I would like to learn, and this is something what I have to learn in the future a bit more. And I see a lot of people.
What exactly would you like to learn?
What is
what
it?
exactly can you like what exactly would you like to learn? Like, can you put it in one or two sentences?
Yeah.
To like, because it helps to really precise that, and then usually the universe answers if we have really precise requests.
Yeah. Yeah, to be more open for I would say for named as failures, or for more open for small steps that I would like to go for. Maybe for a month, I just say, okay, I go for that, let's see what will happen. Nothing else.
How would that look like? How would that look like for you?
It will look like, okay, next time when I will have a job interview, I would like to talk less about maybe the amount of money, because I know they have another, or they have their own thoughts about that. They have their own boundaries, and this might not be the time where we talk about my needs, about my income. It's just, okay, I know how much I will earn, and that's it. But I just would like to do something which I'm interested to, even if it's just being someone behind a bar with fruits or with healthy food. Then it might be something I would like to do with passion, and then the income at first is not as much as important as I think. And this could be the small
basically
step.
following more your heart than your mind, or like expectations of life, or is that a summary in a way? Or
that sounds very very good. Yeah, you really got that point. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I can talk for myself. It does make a difference too.
Of course.
to make choices from that place. It's not, I mean, it doesn't always work yet, but like most of the time, I guess, or hopefully most of the time. I don't know about the unconscious parts, but yeah, it's a different decision. I remember when I was once applying for a job, and the I was very good in like asking for a lot of money, and I actually didn't really feel worthy for that amount of money, but I was like, I just got it. And I was like, oh wow. But it was stressing me out so much to have to live up to those high expectations that I've put on myself, of course. But I was like, damn, like I should have just asked for less, because I'm stressed out by this. and just an internal pressure, right? It's just, I don't even know if I would have done less, or I mean, I don't think my work would have gotten different if I would just take the stress out, but probably even better. I don't know, because I would have been more relaxed. But it's interesting. And then I just started to 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 stop doing that. But yeah, it was a story that reminds me of your job interview story in a way.
Yes, it's very interesting, when we talk about alignment changes in a way of, okay, where am I now into my situation? So what is my constitution now? Has something changed? It doesn't matter if it's about my job or my relation to myself, or about relationship, health, spirituality, or whatever. It's a bit different, but yeah, who is the one who says that I have to change something? How fast and how? So no one is up to my head. It's maybe just a cultural trauma who says, okay, you have to do that now, and that's the only way. And if you don't do that, you're really stressed out. So, or you're starting to take that, whatever it is, and say, okay, they are right and I'm wrong, and now I'm really stressed out, and my whole system is just freezing or dying or running away or whatever. Yeah, and I really get that. Yeah.
So does it feel, or do you feel a little bit more relaxed about the situation now? A little bit calmer, a little bit like not as angry?
Yeah, from that point of, okay, or from the point of view that I see as an adult, that I'm not the only one within that. I'm not the only one within that situations, and that's what makes me feel more attached to my worthiness. So I'm worthy with that. It's okay to have that feelings and to be in that situations. Totally.
So that feeling right there, that feeling of just being a little bit more okay with it, to me, that's an indication that you are now a little bit more in alignment with yourself than you were 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Like that's that's something I just like to put out out into the world in general is how do you measure if you're actually in alignment or not? And I would posit that one very good measurement is how content and peaceful you are on a daily basis. The more in alignment that I am, the more peaceful I feel.
What I would like to add, because it's hard, it's almost like anger is bad. It's not. There's like, I remember you did something and I was so pissed. I was so angry. Like I was laying on my bed and I was like, oh, this is fun. This is really good. So in a way, and I felt so glad, so happy about me being happy about my anger. I was like, oh, I love this. It's just, because I remember it so well to really hate being angry. I was so painful. It was just so much resistance in it. And so just wanting to point that out, there's a really a beauty and also an anger if we're able to step out of the story. Or in that case, I actually was laying on my bed and I was sometimes going into like feeding the story a little bit to just get a little more anger. Like, because it's basically an anger for me. It's because it's releasing my anger out of my system, and it's not for him. Actually, it's for me. So I was just enjoying it, and I haven't had such a big anger, like such a big rage and joy very often, but I wish and hope that that's going to be more the case. So in my experience, it's getting more and more like I don't even get that angry a lot of times because I start reacting on this slow percentages and start changing when it's at, I don't know, 15% or something, and then oh, this feels out of alignment. I start to get angry, and let's communicate if another person is involved, or if it's something that I have to change about my life, well then change it and use conscious anger to really change it. And yeah.
Yeah, because this comes back to that whole thing of emotions just like they're a tool, like they're a tool like anything else, and we can use them.
And we were born with them for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're like we have them, like they're obviously there for a purpose.
Yeah.
So I like that. Is that the ultimate purpose? I don't know, but it feels like it's a very useful one.
How you do that with companies and yeah, so.
Right. So it's like for me, it's also changing the perspective, like about feelings and emotions. It's because even if you are aware and have a lot of psychological experience or knowledge around that, there's still this story of anger is bad and sadness is bad, and some are like, oh, you have to feel it or whatever, but there are a lot of therapists as well who really say it's bad. They're distraction, anxiety distraction tools. Like some of my flatmate, she had this wristband, and whenever she would feel fear, she would hurt her, like that her psychologist gave her that she would hurt herself, distract herself from the fear in order to not have a panic attack. So and a lot of it's very common, and so it's a lot of it is about really bringing the knowledge to people, like the benefits of those feelings, and we are really born for a reason with those, and evolution sometimes makes mistakes, but not as big as like I don't think it's a mistake to be born with that. So it's very beneficial, and in doing exercises that make that aware, like how to really use these as a tool. So it's not just a theory, so it becomes an experience.
Yeah, and there's sometimes that can happen just through conversation like we're having right now. Sometimes it's exercises or meditations or breath work. Like there is a whole host of methodologies that we have learned between the two of us, and we intend to use all of them in some way if it feels appropriate. So like we may have them jumping up and down doing jumping jacks for half an hour just to get them active and moving around and in their bodies just before we even talk about, emotions or anything else. Like it all depends on what we feel from the group. So it is a very intuitive process. And we're constantly checking in with ourselves and with how they're feeling, their energetic self, their emotional self, and gauging, okay, what feels appropriate next? What feels appropriate next? Do we need to go into a sharing circle? Do we need to go into an exercise? Do we need to do whatever?
And a big part is also really the environmental aspect to so and it, to use so what we're going to do or doing is having these leaders and managers and giving them a task to do. And the task is create something that is beneficial for the world. It can be about climate change, can be about saving whales or hungry children, whatever. But as long as it matters. And there is actually a technology we're right now getting into it, swarm AI, to help to really make a decision that reflects the best interest of the group. And then they would choose something to really bring that into the world, and then team dynamics happen. If there's something that they actually do together, then conflict arises or whatever, and that's our possibility to go, okay, pause, this is a good opportunity to look at how do we feel, like what's the actual need behind that, and dive deep, how do I communicate my clear intentions, desires, so that I am heard, because a lot of people, they struggle with that. They start blaming or shaming, and then they're like, but I said what I want, but it's not being received because it's just being thrown anger energy at someone, and anger energy from that place of blame just creates the same energy, and it just comes back and gets into conflict. So but there's a way of actually communicating that from the heart, and actually using conscious sadness and really, which is a far concept for people who are not into the emotional work, because like how can I use conscious sadness in order to be heard? But that's a whole different story. I don't want to get into it right now, but kind of like that's how we work, use feelings for communication and for connection, basically, and showing yourself, because the more we see that other person in their depth and not just the protector or the mask, the more we create understanding and actually a willingness to work together. And that's a part. So it's going to be work, like as a project goes, whenever something comes up, that's a possibility for us to step in.
Yeah. Because one of the big things we'll be focusing on is it's not necessarily what gets accomplished, but how it gets accomplished. And is it getting accomplished, or are we working together lovingly, or are we victim shaming or blaming or anything else? And if those things are happening, okay, let's acknowledge it and let's look for the source. Like what's actually creating that need to blame, instead of communicating, oh, I feel like a lot of times blame comes from fear and sadness and anger. And so if we can teach them how to communicate how they actually feel, then that opens up this whole new conversation of, oh, like empathy comes into play and compassion comes into play. And then all of a sudden they can actually talk about things instead of just yelling at each other. And it's this really beautiful moment when like they shift from you did this to that makes me feel scared. Like I'm scared because, and they can actually name it. And it's a whole different conversation when that happens.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really, it's so important to, there's a sentence that says, name it to tame it. So
yes,
yeah, I didn't know about that one yet. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's from kind of it was something when I had the conversation with into a 7-week workshop with an embodied resources therapist from Sweden, and at some point there was this what is this somatic resources, and what could change when I'm just naming something which is with me, when I'm taking the spell and just saying something, the magic is away. So it's not so complicated. It's just, okay, I say something, that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
I really thought about the idea of how could that be, how could that be, companies start to integrate that. And I just had this pictures of the companies, two companies actually, Google and Samsung. And I have seen a lot of documentaries and point of view about work, and how work can be done in a different way, so that the people are more happy with that they are more into an alignment with that. They have so many opportunities to work, to do their work, and to be with their own, and to be with their friends and families besides work. And that's very interesting. And I just thought maybe that's something that we could see as an opportunity to change our point of view. So
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we very much want to foster in the workplace. We were talking to a friend a few weeks ago, and he said, the way companies run now, I'm willing to give them my time, but I won't give them my heart.
wow.
And we want to teach company leaders how to create a work environment that actually inspires people to give them their heart and actually want to be there.
And that's often like it's a vision that what the company does, but it can be, but also it is about connection. I've heard so many people say, oh, I'm not super inspired of the work I do, but the people there are so nice. I really enjoy working there. And that's our one of our main desires, to feel connected. And sometimes we have stories that we want something else, but that's what we need the most. And yeah.
Really appreciate that you share your vision, your work, your life passion for now. That's so important, because all of us, we would like to do something that is more within our needs, that is more in contact with our own feelings, with all of our feelings, with all of our emotions, not just one or two within an old map of emotion. So
yeah, let us feel alive.
Yes.
Yeah, even if I'm just on the street with, I don't know, two other persons, and we just play whatever, play ball, or we play with kids, because we do that for just 2 hours a week, because that's what we do with our company. We play games with children or people for 2 hours on the street. So, or the post, even if I'm the post man or women. So yeah. And if I'm interested into your work, or if I would like to get in contact with you, How could that be possible? How is that possible? Where
Yeah, it's possible through our website. It's
yeah,
www.alignmentmethode.com. It's actually I started to create it in German, so that's why it's called Alignment Methode with an E at the end. But since I'm now in the United States, so I just translated everything, and well, actually we did together.
We're still working on the language on the website.
Because I translate very German, and it's like, you can't write this like that. It does not sound good.
You can. It sounds weird to American ears. That's all.
Yeah. So there are a few words still in German, but most of it is in English. So there's a contact part to reach out to us. Yeah, I guess that's the best form.
And it's alignment dash, right?
That's true, yeah. Alignment-methode.com.
I will put it into the show notes. I guess
perfect.
That will be,
thank you.
Yeah, that will be the best for now. The best way to just point on it and find you. And is there something you would from actually, I would like to ask you the question from now, from the point of view, from being into the now, what, I would say from the inner of your heart, what is actually the gift you would like to give through the people when you could say something to them? Is there something you would say from the perspective from your point of view, actually deep from the heart, what is really important into life?
I think what comes for me is like doing this emotional work and starting to really pay attention to the low levels of feelings. And it became aware to me when I was driving the other day in the morning. It was just a beautiful landscape, and that's easy to think it's very beautiful, and I was listening to a podcast, and it was actually a possibility management podcast, and there was an exercise to just for a few minutes start noticing 3 to 10% of fear, anger, sadness, and joy. Just the low level, because often we just pay attention to the high level ones, but the lower ones are numbed out. And what was most intense for me was the joy. And I was looking at something yellow that sometimes it seems almost neutral. And I was looking at it, paying attention to this low level of joy, and I almost cried because it was such a beautiful yellow. And by tuning into feelings and becoming aware of it, life just becomes so much richer. And those small things in life that we experience all day, they just become so beautiful. And this small little touch becomes like a whole universe that you just want to dive into. Or this beautiful yellow is it's just so amazing. And I remember not being able to see the beauty in those things and just feel numb. And that's a big part of it, to bring this into people's lives, this appreciation of the small things. And we always hear this sentence of, appreciate the small things. Like, thinking, of course. But I was not able to. I didn't know how. It's the same, like, start loving yourself. But then you're like, well, how do I do that? And there I found ways how to do that, and I want to share that. So yeah.
I feel like for me, what comes is the power of knowing that everything is a choice. Everything is a choice, even breathing. I don't have to keep being here if I really don't want to.
You can't not stop breathing. Doesn't work.
But I don't have to stay in this body. That's
Well,
what
you
I'm
can kill
saying. I
yourself,
can kill
but-
myself. That is always an option.
That's true.
And I came to this, like, I was actually in a really dark place. I was really angry and depressed, and I just didn't see any possibility of finding joy in this life at all. And I was back in the woods on this property I was living at the time, and I was way back, and I found this slash pile, which is basically just a pile of roots and big logs and things that loggers leave when they come and clear cut an area. And I remember staring at it and looking around and realizing that I couldn't see any civilization, that no one would find me. And I realized my hand was in my pocket. I was so out of it, I didn't even know my hand was in my pocket until that moment. And when I realized my hand was in my pocket, I realized I was holding my box cutter, my knife. And I hadn't even remembered picking it up and putting it in my pocket. I had no earthly idea it was there. And I just remember standing there knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I could exit right then and there. Like, I could just slip my wrist, just right up the vein. It'd be done. No one would find me. I'd be out. And that possibility was so tantalizing in that moment. Like, I stood there probably for 15 minutes. Like, am I actually going to do this? And obviously I didn't. I'm still here. But what I realized in that moment was, if I'm not going to kill myself, if I'm not going to exit, then I am choosing to be here. And if I'm choosing to be here, then I'm going to live my life, obligation and society be damned, and I'm going to enjoy it. And the other thing I realized in that moment was, because I had, up until then, I had not consciously chosen to live. And because I had not consciously chosen to live, I was subconsciously doing things that were slowly killing me, because I didn't really want to be here. I had never made that choice. And so everything is a choice, and we have that power. We are not powerless. We actually have the ultimate power.
Yeah. So I'm really thankful, and so actually I'm so yeah, I'm really touched by this, yeah, just raw beings of or raw showing up of yourself, who you might be. So I even if I don't really know who you are, really, I might, or we might get just a piece of a cake. It's so important. It's so important. And even if you share this lifetime, or a point or a part of this lifetime where you have been, or where you were, that's where we are sometimes. And it's totally okay to feel those feelings, and it's totally okay to communicate that, because it's a world where we get through that situations, and it is worthy. We have to talk about that, otherwise we will just, maybe we will just jump from a bridge or whatever. And I guess,
Yeah.
why we don't have to? We could, but we don't really have to. And I'm really thankful for your courage and your standing and your share, both of you. And yeah, so
I would like to add one more thing to that really quick, because what you just said reminded me of something. What brought me to that really dark place where I was standing by that slash pile was almost entirely because I wasn't living my life. I was living all of the things that I'd been taught I was supposed to do. And I was not in alignment with myself. And that was extremely painful.
totally, I totally can see you into that emotion, and like you just spelled it out. I just wasn't with my feeling, or I wasn't just with my alignment. It's just an idea, but I didn't fit into that idea wherever it come from. So yeah, wow. So I really hope that you have the opportunity to spread your work more and more into the future, because that's so important. I really
Thank you.
I really got something from
Yeah.
out of it now, and there have been some impulses and some ideas and emotions.
What did you get out of it?
I get out of it that
I have hard questions sometimes. I know that.
yeah, I get out of it that it is really important that we do have more space for kind of that attachments, for kind of that conversations and sharings, so that we can start to trust ourselves more within our daily life situations, within, okay, I didn't get that job, so that's fine, there will be another one. And even if that doesn't fit, there will be another one. So, and that's okay. You will not end up into something you can't change in the end, if you really like to change. So I get that out of it, and I get that we are all that I'm not alone with that we are not alone with that. that's what I got out of the conversation. We're just humans, and that's okay. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to fix everything. We just have to figure out, how do I want it to live, and how do I want it to feel at the end of the day, and then the next day, and then the next day. So don't force yourself to something that's not realistic, and which is just an idea of a traumatized capital or a construct of, I have to hustle and that's everything. No.
Yeah, we've learned that very well, most of us in school and from our parents. And I mean, the way how children are raised is put them into a box. We have to adult and educate them and not let them just be. They have to be molded or something, and I think that's a big mistake.
There's this. Even if we are now into the end, I guess a bit. Maybe. That's a good end for now. And just say goodbye and take your time. Have a
Thank
good
you
time.
for having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So
Yeah, so do I. I thank you for giving us the opportunity. It was lovely to have a conversation, to just share with you and just to hear you and learn. Like, it was beautiful. Thank you.
yeah, thanks for being a part of.
Yeah, and good luck with your podcast and all your other projects that you're doing and just being you.